Students, I have great pleasure in introducing you to an old colleague of mine and also a dear friend of mine, a highly qualified person who agreed to be our guest lecturer today on a very short notice. So, Mr. Rajiv Soni is a chartered accountant and has a versatile experience of 3 decades in the hospitality industry. After securing all India #1 rank examinations, he started his career with ITC Hotels, majorly responsible for finance and technology at 3 premium properties: ITC Maurya, ITC Chola, and the Everest Hotel Kathmandu. This is a hotel which ITC used to have earlier, which they have given away now. So after a decade with ITC Hotels, he went on to start his own consulting company and provided training services at ITC's HM Institute, IHM Pusa, Hotel Claridge's, and RM Institute of Hospitality. So Rajiv sir teaches subjects in finance management, administration, and is also a qualified trainer in soft skills. So I would now request Mr. Rajiv Soni to kindly start his presentation. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, folks, students. Can you all see me?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
great. Great. So let me just see.
they have their mics off.
Okay. So I need to understand whether you can see my presentation or not.
So you have to present first of all. The presentation is off from your side.
Okay.
The same process. You click on present now.
1 second. Present now. Yeah.
Okay, now it's coming. Now it's coming.
Yeah, okay.
It's
All right.
about
Okay.
to come.
Okay.
Okay. We don't see your screen right now, sir.
1 second.
So you click on stop. You click on stop
says-
presenting.
Okay.
Okay. Now again click on present now.
Okay.
Your entire screen.
Okay.
And then you click on the screen that is coming.
Entire screen,
Yeah.
And then you click share.
the bigger screen.
Okay. It says you are presenting your screen.
Yes, sir. Now we can see you. Now we can see you.
Yeah, but I want to show my presentation. How
So
will I do
you
that?
open your PowerPoint right now. The PowerPoint that you are about to use, we'll see the same PowerPoint.
Okay, 1 second.
Yes, sir. We can see it. Slideshow.
In Rajiv sir, we'll be able to see that.
Okay. Yeah, you can see this.
Yes, sir.
आप PowerPoint अपना खोलो तो इधर इसमें आ जाएगा.
We can see
But
this, sir.
now, okay,
Yeah,
now
yeah,
you
yeah,
can
we
see
know.
this,
It's
but
done.
I'm not able to see you guys. How will that work?
So we are able to see you. So
No,
once
you will not be able to see us. But we are able to see you.
No, if I
can-
want to
we
go
can
back, how do I do that? Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a challenge for me. Okay, now can you all see this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my only
Yes.
issue is that as I'm talking to all of you, I can see my computer screen, I can see the slideshow, but I can't see anything. I can't see any one of you. Isn't there a way that I can see all of you and see the presentation in a window?
No, sir. Not in this software.
So either I see the presentation or I can see all of you.
Yes, sir. But we can
Okay,
hear
good.
you and see you.
Not in this.
Okay, great. Okay, so that's fine. That's okay.
But we can hear you.
So,
We can see.
I'm sorry. I didn't get that, Kulwant Singh.
No, we
Hello?
can see you as if you're taking class, and we can
Okay.
see your slides as well.
Okay, great. Okay. So, okay, so let's start with this. So students, Kulwant Singh had requested me, to work out something on hotel revenue and cost. And having been in the finance in hotels for many years, I thought, okay, let's share some thoughts. So I put together a presentation for all of you to see. Can you see all of the first slide? Can you see the entire slide?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes, we
Yes,
can
sir.
see. Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So in a hotel, like in any other enterprise, in any other entity, in any other organization, there would be a stream of revenue, that is the income that comes in. There are costs that are incurred, and then there is a profit at the end of it. So the traditional equation is revenue minus cost is equal to profit. Now, revenue management in a hotel is quite different from revenue management in any other enterprise. So let's first of all come and see. A hotel earns revenue through the rooms, through the F&B activity, and through others. Now, in terms of rooms, the room revenue or the room income is going to come by selling the right room to the right client at the right moment, at the right price, through the right distribution channel. So everything has to be right. Of course, that could be considered as utopian, because not always everything is right. So there'll be sometimes you'll have the right room, but it may not be the right client. He may want a discount. He or she may want a discount. It may not be the right moment. They may want to move out to another hotel and they're close by. It may not be at the right price. It may not be through the right distribution channel. So there are many, I would say, ifs and buts that go into it, but all that can be put together to get the optimum pricing and hence get the optimum revenue for a room. And therefore, once it is for a room, then you multiply it by the number of rooms, and there we go. So that is about the room revenue. You'll find this presentation is going to be a little different from what you have expected, and just go along with me. Now, the peculiarities in the room revenue, are as follows. Firstly, the capacity is fixed. So if you've got 500 rooms, you can only sell 500 rooms. You cannot sell 501. Well, there are times when you would have sold a room more than once, and people will say, okay, you've got 101% occupancy, 105% occupancy. That's because you've been able to sell a room during the day and again then for the night. But the number of rooms hasn't gone up. The number of physical rooms is still 500. Second, rooms is a highly perishable commodity. Actually, the concept of hotel revenue has come in from airlines, because it was initially airlines where a seat not sold was revenue lost forever, because once a flight has taken off, then so people used to say, okay, why did we not sell off that those last few seats at even 100 rupees? So there are answers for that, but we won't look at that right now. So the first peculiarity of the room revenue is that the capacity is fixed, the number of rooms is fixed, it's highly perishable. The high fixed cost, because it's a capital cost. Once you have built up a room, a lot of money has gone into it, into the construction, into the interiors, and then into the supplies that go into that. That's not a lot, but those are the variable costs. So there's a high fixed cost, then there are variable costs attached to the room in terms of the guest supplies, the cleaning supplies. The same product, the same room can be priced differently for different customers depending on the different timing. And so, the demand for that one particular room or for a group of rooms or for the whole hotel, it actually evolves over a period of time. There's nothing very sacrosanct about it. The other interesting part is that this product can be sold in advance. I mean, it's very difficult to sell, let's say, eggs in advance. Of course, people say that my entire produce will be sold to you. But believe you me, according to the Sale of Goods Act, you cannot really sell a good in advance. Yet in a hotel, a hotel room can be sold in advance. An airline seat can be sold in advance. So there's a little bit of a dichotomy over there. And then the market is segmented in the sense that the market is broken down into segments. What kind of people are coming to buy your room? Is it a DFIT? Is it FFIT? Is it a CVGR? CVGR is company volume guaranteed rate. I think you would be knowing all these things. whether it's that CVGR is domestic, whether it's foreign, whether it's a group, whether it's a crew, or whether it's just a walk-in. The interesting part is a walk-in is a person who not only just walks in, but a walk-in is a person in a hotel who has the name of this hotel top of his mind or her mind when they get off an aircraft, interestingly. So that's a walk-in. They've not planned. They get off and somebody tells them, or they have thought in their mind that, oh, we're going to go to Hotel X. So they walk in. So there are various combinations of how to tackle a walk-in, and sometimes if a walk-in has already thought about coming into the hotel, you can charge a rack rate and get away with it. Sometimes you may not be able to do it. So again, these are the peculiarities of the room as a part of the product of the hotel. The basic factors to be considered in the revenue from rooms is going to be past occupancy rates, the general sales of that hotel, the company target and the groups, the customer segmentation, market share. You need to know that what is the share of your hotel for a similar room, from other hotels. And we can also say the customer satisfaction. If the customers are satisfied with the type of room, they will go ahead and talk and say that, oh, suite number so-and-so or suite X or the Raja Lakshmi suite is the best. And that's how, the word of mouth, it gets along. Then there are some external factors which determine revenue for rooms. It could be the weather condition. It could be past weather conditions forecasted. People will say, oh, during this period of time, it's going to rain. It may not rain on that particular day. Holiday and event information. There might be a holiday season. There could be an event happening in a particular city, in which case the rooms are not going to be available in full. Some hotels nearby may have closed down. Then what happens? And of course, the competitor hotels, what is their pricing like? All these factors are considered determining the hotel's revenue from rooms as a department. So since our talk is about hotel revenue and costs, that is how to maximize hotel revenue and how to minimize the costs, let's just quickly see how would we maximize the revenue from rooms. So one of the ways is to segment and analyze the market. So the segmentation can be according to the area. It can be a geographical segmentation, and or it can be according to the type of customer. So the type of customer and the segmentation I've already shared with you. It could be a DFID, FFID, DCVGR, FCVGR, and so on and so forth. And the segmentation geographically can be how many coming from north, how many coming from south, how many coming from overseas. The second important piece of information which we need to cut into is the competition analysis. Third is the customer behavior. Now, let me share with you, an interesting fact. About 25-30 years ago, there was no way of figuring out how customers were behaving. You'd never come to know. Today, there are lots of software, and of course, one thing you have to be careful. To be able to analyze customer behavior, you have to interact with them. So you cannot take any screenshots with them, of them. You cannot record any conversations till you have their consent. So be very careful about that. Just because we want to know something about a customer's behavior, we should not be intruding into what is known as their privacy. Then we need to know historical and the current data, KPIs. What are the key performance indicators you have? The performance indicators are basically occupancy rates, ARR, and then ARRs are broken down further, into the single potential average room rate, which is a SPAR versus a normal. Then you have a GOPAR. So all these, I'm not going to go into details of all these because I think the instruction from Mr. Kulmohan Singh is that we need to see how to optimize hotel revenues and also optimize the costs. So I won't go into the details here. Then is the yield management. We've got to figure out what is the yield per room. Now, these are very interesting, though they may sound academic, but they're not really academic. The results are very, very real. And then, we need to also see that how can we get our staff to perform at peak levels? It's very important. You may have the best room, you may have the best fragrance in the room, you may have the best, say, fruit basket and chocolate, cookies platter and all that. But if the valet outside your room, outside the room, or if the housekeeping staff has got a surly look about him or her, or is not very, is not looking very fresh in life, that will kill the otherwise superior, ambience that we are trying to create. So staff performance has to be at peak levels. Then only, the room revenues will be at tops, because everybody then wants to come and stay in the room or in the hotel to be able to enjoy the experience. Are you guys getting it all?
Everybody?
Yes,
भैया का network issue भी है थोड़ा सा, but I'm sure they're all getting it. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any questions up to now, or should I just go ahead and continue?
Please continue, sir.
Okay. So that was about the rooms revenue, about how rooms as a department, rooms as a division, rooms as a important integral part of a hotel deals with earning its revenues. The next important division of a hotel is the food and beverage. And believe you me, if you students go onto Google and you do hotel revenue, you even do room revenue. If you enter room revenue, you will find sites which will talk about hotel revenue. And if you put in hotel revenue, you will get sites, a majority of the sites will talk about the room revenue. That's because rooms, constitute a very large percentage of the revenue in a hotel. But F&B in many places is a very close second. In fact, in some places, food and beverage is almost neck to neck. The important thing about food and beverage revenue is that, a lot of people, and it's a fact, a lot of people come to a hotel. They may not come and stay in the hotel only because of the food, but a lot of people come to a hotel because of the food. They say, wow, the food there is, excellent. So I think I'll go and stay there because I need to eat my meals over there. So F&B revenue is basically all revenue that is generated, from the food and beverage outlets. So that's a very simple definition. Here again, in the F&B also there are peculiarities. The important peculiarities that one needs to be aware of are, in fact, one of the most important ones I've not put it here, but I'll just share it with you. It is how the food has tickled your palate. T-I-C-K-L-E-D and P-A-L-A-T-E. So, it's very important for the F&B personnel to churn out the same dish again and again, day after day, meal after meal, with the same flavor, with the same taste. That's an amazing challenge for a chef and for the F&B team, F&B production team. So the peculiarities here are that, you have to entice the customer, entice the person who's staying in the room down to the restaurant with authentic, unique experience. Times are changing, so, you've got to offer lighter and quick food, I don't mean fast food. I mean food that can be served quickly. A hotel must treat each and every restaurant as a profit center. It should not look at as an overall scenario. It's not a service center to the rooms. It's a profit center in the hotel. So there's a difference over there. And menu and price engineering is very important. Menu engineering and price engineering comes when after a certain period of time, people get a little tired of eating the same food. So maybe there is a little, it's not tricking the customer, but it's actually engineering. It's re-engineering the same item, but with a different flavor, maybe with an added flavor, maybe with a different, and then of course the pricing also. So how does one maximize the F&B revenue? So one is transform hotel spaces into F&B spaces. Now, I don't know how many of you would have seen, but people who have had, let's say, 20 to 30 years experience in hotels will tell you that there are certain spaces in a lobby. 30 years ago, they were just a lobby. Today, you'll find that there is F&B being sold over there. So there'll be a pastry shop side by. There'll be a coffee come cookies, counter. So in the lobby, which is different from the coffee shop, which is different from the mithai shop, which is different from, a restaurant. And so that means that they've converted that little extra space in the lobby into a F&B selling, next space. Second way to improve or increase, the F&B revenue would be to use technology as much as possible, whereby you can, look at, you can look at how to cut the meats, how to cut a particular dish into, also to be able to figure out using technology that what is the right portion size, you must be able to cater to a local taste, So if, for example, a restaurant in a hotel in Goa doesn't serve Goan prawn curry, I think people will probably not go there. Definitely today people are very, they're very knowledgeable, and they're also very careful about their dietary, like restrictions, and they want to know what is the calorific intake they are having per meal. So it's important to be able to let the customer know. And the last important point here, I would say, is make the food and beverage eating, make the meal an experience in itself. That is what will bring the customer, a repeat customer, which will then obviously increase your overall F&B revenue. So we've done rooms, we've done F&B, and the third part is the MODs. Now, MOD is nothing but minor operating departments, and these are again not insignificant. They may be called minor operating departments, but here again, they are not insignificant. They are not to be treated, in a shabby manner that, oh, it doesn't matter. It matters. Every rupee, every cent, every penny in a particular hotel is important, and which is the earning. So normally in a hotel, the revenue would come from, it would come from the telephones, long distance calls, etc. Of course, today people use their cell phones, but sometimes people may use long distance call from the hotel. Health club, beauty parlor, business center, shop rentals, and then you have a miscellaneous. So miscellaneous here you can, of course it's quite small, but again, I won't use the word insignificant. It could be a person who wants to take away a guest amenity, so he'll obviously pay for it at the checkout time. So these are, I would say, these are the revenue earning aspects. These are the areas which are important from the revenue point of view. Now let's look at the costs. Now a hotel has costs, again, which are linked to the rooms, costs linked to F&B, and costs linked to the MODs. Now, traditionally, in the uniform system of accounting, the costs of earning the revenue in these areas is the variable cost. So, for example, we take the room revenue, but we do not we do not allocate the fixed cost of rooms to it. What we do is we use the principle of accounting, of cost accounting here, which is called contribution. So revenue minus variable cost is equal to contribution. Simple. We'll just keep it simple. We won't complicate it. So room revenue minus the variable cost of a room. So the variable cost of a room will be salary and wages, which is directly attributable to the room. We will use guest supplies directly attributable to a room. We will use cleaning supplies, and we'll use apportion other. Okay, not a portion. We will allocate. I'm sorry, a portion is a wrong word. We will allocate other direct expenses of a room to a room, and we'll get a contribution. Then the second step we'll come to is F&B. Again, in F&B, we will say there is a direct cost, which is the food cost, the cost of the meat, the cost of the spices, the cost of the raw materials, both in food and in beverage. So there is a revenue of food, and there is a cost of food, and there is cost meaning the direct cost, that's the raw material cost, and there is a beverage revenue, and then there is a direct cost of the beverage. After this, we will say, or we will come to what is known as the other direct costs in F&B. So again we'll have things like cleaning supplies, and we'll have operating supplies, we'll have the guest supplies, and we'll have the direct say salaries, the salaries of the staff who are serving. And so once we subtract the direct costs from the from the revenue, we'll get the F&B contribution. And same way we will apply the principles of costing of direct costing to the MODs. So we'll get the contribution from rooms, we'll get the contribution from F&B, and we'll get the contribution from others, and we'll add up, and we'll get the hotel gross contribution. From here, we will subtract the fixed costs, right? We'll subtract the administrative costs. So, for example, the accounts department, the personnel department, the costs, the salary costs of these two departments. For example, I'm saying you cannot apportion, you cannot allocate it directly. So this is what is known as apportionment. So you apportion these costs. So you will have the fixed costs, you'll have administrative and general, you'll have marketing costs. You will have cost of heat, light, and power, which is the the cost of the air conditioning and the cost of the diesel and the gensets, etc. All that, and then you'll have financial costs. Financial costs are cost of capital, which is being invested in the hotel, and so on and so forth. So these are all one has to manage these costs. So here I want a word of caution. I'm not going into the details over here, but what I want to share with all of you is that I will not use the word minimize the cost, because the moment you begin to minimize a cost, you may end up in affecting the guest experience. So we have to be very careful, harmonious balance has to be maintained. So from here, I will then now move on to how does a hotel manage the cost then? The first way to do it is to have a cost controller. Now in F&B, we normally have what is known as an F&B controller. An F&B controller is not the F&B manager, and an F&B controller is not the finance person either. I mean, it's not the pure finance. So basically, the F&B controller is a very unique and a very interesting person who has great knowledge of food and beverage, as well as the detailed costs of the food and beverage. That's why he's known as the F&B controller. So not only should we have a food and beverage controller, but we should have another, I would say, controller today, in today's day and age, of the rooms and the MOD. But normally the rooms and MOD aspect is then taken over by the unit financial controller, to whom the F&B controller also reports. So I would say fine, that's all right. The other way, the second important aspect in managing the cost is to have zero-based budgeting for all the departments. Zero-based budgeting means start from zero. Look at the revenue. Don't take the revenue of last year and multiply it by 10% and say, okay, my 10% increment is going to happen, therefore now my costs will also increase in a similar fashion. So because 10% of 100 is more than 10% of 20, therefore I've made a profit and therefore now let's pass it on. No, no, don't do that. So don't look at 10% of 100. Go back to basics and say, okay, if I was to start all over again today, what would my revenue be? And you'd be surprised that it might turn out to be 95 or it might turn out to be 120. So that's called zero-based budgeting. That means we start all over again. It's not a very tough way, but it requires a little bit of financial discipline. And I think a lot of managers, a lot of hotel staff are, have understood this over the last 20-25 years. The third thing is must have profit review meetings on a very regular basis, because otherwise what's the point of having having a cost controller and having a and having a zero-based budgeting and then comparing it with actuals if you don't review this regularly. Another way to manage costs is to have automation, but as I am saying here, not at the cost of personalization. So I think we'll not go into too much of detail over here. And last is the financial management. So financial management is important because financial management helps a hotel, helps the unit, helps the general manager, helps the finance people to be able to manage the interest cost and the cost of the debt, as well as the cost of managing surplus funds. So there's no point in keeping a large amount of surplus fund in your bank earning 2% or sometimes not even that. So how do you go ahead and park that fund? And once you've parked it, then that fund should not get locked, because you may need that money all of a sudden. So folks, this is about hotel revenue and cost management, which has been up to now. And now be prepared. The knockout. And what is the knockout? This is the knockout. The knockout is that we have a situation which we have never seen before. Did not even dream it. Did not even dream it. In our wildest of dreams, this was not going to happen. This would have never happened the way it's happened. So now see here, hotel revenue has got a question mark. Cost management, I haven't talked about it, because if there's no revenue, there's going to be no costs, except the fixed cost, of course. So this part of my presentation, I thought about sharing with you only as of last night. So I've done some homework, and because there's no point in just sharing, concepts of hotel revenue and cost management, which is available in all the books. Fair enough, I could have given you, a slightly different flavor by virtue of having worked in 2-3 hotels, having done some consulting work in some good hotels. But I think all of you as students of hospitality, of hotels, I think my presentation should equally have weightage of what's going to happen, because it has never happened before. So the travel and tourism sector across the globe is the biggest casualty, and and hotels. The reason for that is that if the travel is limited, if airlines are not moving, if trains are not moving, if you're not allowed to move in cars, how will you reach a destination? And hotels are at destinations. Destination doesn't necessarily mean a vacation destination. For anybody who's moving for work, wherever the work is the destination. So if travel is going to get limited, how will hotels fill up? Please notice the question mark on the top of the slide. How will the hotels fill up? Whom will the hotels receive with warmth? Whom will they cater to? Whom will they prepare the meals for? Whom will they provide services of health club, beauty parlor to? So if movement has got curtailed, curbed, stopped, hotels will have, and I'm sure have, completely folded up. Completely. If that is the case, obviously the revenue is zero, but costs are going up.
Is it
Uh,
not moving?
at this, I'll take another 5-7 minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah, that should be all right.
Okay. So, I was just going through, a webinar which was chaired by Mr. Raghuram Rajan. Incidentally, Mr. Raghuram Rajan is a DPS alumnus, and he's only 2 years younger than me. And I'm going to be inviting him in the very near future, of course, through the web only, for doing a webinar for the DPS alumnus, for the DPS alumni. So when I went through his entire this thing, I saw some nice, and when I say nice, I actually mean nice thoughts, which I'm sharing with all of you. He says the good news is that as far as India is concerned, that it seems to have suppressed the curve so far. This so far is as of the day before yesterday. It looks like it might have escaped the worst of the pandemic, but it will have to be cautious. So we are still on a cautious mode. The bad news is that there is a good chance of it recurring sometime in November. So I don't know. It's very difficult, to make any estimates or even the guesstimates from here. The other thing which he said was, for individuals, health and safety will become #1 on their agenda. Now, the moment health and safety becomes #1 on the agenda of people, they will stop moving around. They will stop flying. Excuse me. They'll stop flying. They'll stop traveling, because there are many issues and aspects which are related to all this. You may remember, or you may know, even when you are traveling from place A to place B by car, you'll be very careful about not eating at a particular dhaba, or you'll be a little suspicious about the cup in which your tea has come. So so health and safety has moved up from third or fourth. Sometimes you would say, okay, chalo, koi farak nahi padta, let's go for it. But now you won't do that, right? Now, definitely you'll not do that. I will not put it past people to carry their own sanitizer, to sanitize the cup and then have the tea or coffee in that. But okay, that was in a lighter vein. So there will be more and more spending on health and safety rather than in other areas which can be done away with. Just segregating the cost between the good costs and the bad costs. The bad costs are fancy office, unnecessary spending, bad performers, traditional working. So, here I'm not advocating ruthlessness, but in a way one will have to be, if there's a better word for ruthless, one will have to be very, very cautious, and will have to be careful, but one will have to axe, A-X-E, one will have to axe. Because something is not required, then please don't spend money on it. Don't spend, the good money on something which is not going to yield the revenue. Travel and tourism will take a big hit. These are 5 things which I picked up from the webinar, which I'm sharing with all of you, of Mr. Raghuram Rajan. Force majeure will be in contracts from now onward. So, nowhere did people expect this kind of things happening. So even if this was insured, I think insurance companies would have gone bust completely. And the last, not the last, but the 5th important point which I found is be future ready. So in this crisis, there'll be winners and there'll be losers. There will be losers, unfortunately. Those who reorient strategy, those who can regroup, those who can reorient themselves, they will win. I got some information from Global Data. It's a data and analytics firm in the US. And it has some very positive, optimistic views. It says the resiliency of the hotel industry will help it come up. Hotels offering very attractive promotions that will not damage their brand will get people booking again once the danger ebbs. Now, the key word is once the danger ebbs. We don't know whether it will be October 9, October 20, March 21, could be even later, could be October 21. We don't know. But one thing is very clear, and this is something which I would urge all my students, to keep a track of. Discounting is not the answer. Dropping room rates and offering heaviest discounts. The hotels that do that, be they small, be they boutique, be they large, they will be the last ones to recover when the demand eventually returns. It will return. There's no doubt about that. It's just a matter of time. Question is how much time. That we don't know. Then here is another interesting thought from a hotel management magazine. It says it will take the US hotel industry approximately 5 years to achieve a pre-COVID-19 occupancy, because I don't know if the US is going to be the most important indicator, but thus far it has given indications in a lot of industries globally. So I have just picked it up from there. Maybe in India it's not 5 years, it's something 3 years, but God forbid. It talks about hotels, very interestingly, it talks about hotels to implement urgent, aggressive is a word that comes easy to the US. I think you all know what I mean. Urgent, aggressive cost containment initiatives, including deviations from brand standards, closing F&B outlets. Now see, closing an F&B outlet is not only aggressive, but it's also very, very, it can be damaging to, it can be damaging to the brand. But again, that's how a US person will think, that okay, just shut it down. They hire and fire, as you all know. Sometimes, so firing is like a closing down an F&B outlet. So you have to let everybody go. You just sell off everything and say, okay, let me cut my losses. Instituting, I beg your pardon, instituting comprehensive cleanliness and sanitation protocols, crisis management programs. Now, this is where the costs are going to be focused, rather than painting a mural in a lobby, or during just going berserk on spending in terms of say decoration or wall decoration. All that's going to stop forever. I think at least forever, if not forever, at least for 5 to 7 years. Hotels must focus efforts, energies, and resources on getting through the pandemic and prepare for a recovery real quick. Operational, marketing, and financial. I put financial first, but in talking here, I'll put it at the end. I'll take another 5 minutes, folks. So in terms of marketing, the first question to answer is, how should you be budgeting, during this period? That is now. How should you be budgeting as on 23rd of April, a Thursday? If you are in a hotel, if you're in a marketing, how would you be doing it? How should you be doing it? Again, some of this information I have taken from 1 or 2 general managers of ITC. I called them up late last night and I took information from them. So here's what they have to say. As a general rule, if you can maintain your marketing budget during this crisis, you should be able to do it. But if you can cut it down by 50%, but not more than that. So if you are currently look at the last point. If you are currently spending, let's say 10% of your gross revenue on marketing, then don't go below 5. That's a rule of thumb. There are many things that you can do now that you have the available time, because your room is not selling, people are not coming, nobody's coming to the restaurant. But you can do something in terms of your time, in terms of the available time for marketing. And what is that? You can audit your marketing assets. You can record videos for social use, for social media use in the future. You can plan a webinar. You can, talk to your, your most favored, say, customers on the web. You can update your website. You'll be surprised. This is something which when I read, I thought, hey, let me just give it a shot. I actually logged into 3-4 hotels' websites, and I actually called up the number, and the number doesn't work. Seriously. I mean, can you think of a hotel in April 2020 which has a number which doesn't work? I mean, what is that hotel going to do? Maybe they forgot about it, sure, but then now is the time to do it. Also, dive deep into your analytics and sales and your lead subject data. What do you know about your customers? Do you know everything about them? Do you know what happened to people who didn't come? Why didn't they come? So this is a lot of introspection about your data that you can do. I then called up 2 of my friends who are hoteliers, and one of them has been a hotelier for about 40 years. And the other is a lady who runs a boutique hotel in UP, in Dehradun. So here are random thoughts I got from them, and I'd like to share this with all of you. I hope you can all see this. It says, firstly, you'll have to redefine the revenues, you'll have to redefine costs, you'll have to redefine the rationalization for a revenue. I mean, if the projected occupancy is 50%, then please close down. Actually, close down 50% of the rooms, cover them up with sheets, and just lock up the rooms. Because why are you going to you're going to be spending money unnecessarily? Open only banquets, and eat 16 to 18-hour coffee shop. Coffee shop can double up as a bar. Keep things like the gym closed. Renegotiate all AMCs downwards. Renegotiate insurance costs. Most hotels will concentrate on saving costs, which are good. But in his opinion, he says the general manager should focus 80% on revenue and 20% on saving costs. Wow, that was something interesting. Then he said, stop loyalty programs, suspended for 6 months. Control air conditioning. Don't worry about a light and a fan in an office. Of course, that is also to be done. But the main cost comes, in the air conditioning, hundreds of times of a light or of a fan. Let the lawns and sunlight dry up. No problem at all. Grow plants that need less water. Wow, this is something really nice. Swimming pool is a must. Do a lot around the pool. Maybe do a barbecues and so on and so forth. Keep your orientation towards the customer, because once you lose the customer, as it is, there's a lot of loss going on. But once you lose the customer, then it's going to be very difficult to get him or her or them back. Here are some suggestions from the boutique hotel owner, and here's what she had to share with me on hotel revenues and costs during now and later. So she said the first thing is they'll have to think of multiple business summit propositions. So these are owners of hotels with 16 to 18 to 20 rooms, and believe me, they don't have very deep pockets, and they don't have funding from investors. They may have one or two uncles or aunts who put in money, but by and large, they are operating on a pretty much day-to-day, not day-to-day, I would say month-to-month basis. Some of them have even talked about the fact that they may need to look at changing the scale and the nature of the business. They may want to change it, and they may want to open a school there. They may want to open a yoga retreat. They may want to make it into a health resort. I mean, these are realities facing hotels. I mean, and if people are considering this, I don't think they are wrong. Cost cutting is high, as the staff with multi-purposes are being given salaries, the rest are being asked to go home. I mean, that's a fact. I know as a finance person, I can share one thing with you, that nobody has a tree outside their house from where they can just pluck a 500 rupee note or a 100 rupee note. It has to be earned. So if the avenues for earning have gone down, then then what? So it's going to be zero. So if you're going to be earning zero, how can you spend from that zero? Interestingly, they talked about baking classes, food festivals, which they plan to do now on the web. I said, wow, food festival on the web. So yeah, she said yes, they would welcome me on that. So as I get some information on that, I'll be happy to share it with all of you. Managing expenses, taking care of wear and tear for a minimum of 6 months is fine. So she gave me an example. She says a minimum of, now here's something which is a real, it's a real figure. It's not just a statistic. The minimum of 3 lakhs is being spent on managing salaries for staff and wear and tear of a 15 to 17 room property. Right. Now, getting clients and managing a base of 3 lakhs at a time is going to take, at the most you can do it for 6 months, 18, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs. What happens after that? So they are looking at giving away their property to an ashram or make it into a farmhouse. I found that a little amusing, but we shouldn't put it past the fact that they might just do it, because what works well for some people, because they may have ancestral property, they may have an ancestral name in the market, and they may have a good relationship, with their staff, etc. So that will help them tide over for a few months. But what after that? What happens, to the revenue after that? And revenue will come only then the cost will be incurred out of that. So I've come to the last slide. Are things as bad? Are they going to be as terrible? Okay. Now, this is something that a lot of hotels are going to look for. Yes, we are open. I think on that optimistic note, I'd like to end my class. I'd like to end this lecture. That an epidemic such as the one we are now experiencing, it will require a lot of planning. It will require a lot of it will require a lot of imaginative and innovative planning, I would say. And one should not be averse to taking risks. One should not be averse to thinking that, oh, competition is not doing it. Do you think we should try it? I think you should. Give it your best shot. Just make sure that capital investment is kept at a minimum. Revenue should be earned as fast as possible. And even if there is a way of earning revenue from hotel customers without their coming to your hotel, that should be looked at as a first thing, so that one can go ahead and get them to e-pay, whether it's through the banking system or whatever, and then you can go ahead and defray your costs. So let's look forward, let's be optimistic and say, yes, we are open. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Good. Thank you very much, Rajiv.